Republicans always go to the extreme.
See, the Democrats were in power so long, they validated Lord Acton, and they were, frankly, arrogant.
House Republicans remind me sort of the Stepford Wives. I mean, there's absolutely no breaking of ranks.
This is a terrible shock to the Democrats. They saw happen on the 8th of November of 1994 something that they didn't believe was possible in their lifetime.
The thing I think is most amazing about this new group is their information proof. It makes no difference what kind of information you give them. They're kind of hermetically sealed from receiving it.
We always go to war to protect our freedoms and to save the next generation. And I think it's true on this fight to try to shrink government.
My people in West Virginia didn't send any mandate, as far as I'm concerned, to support the so-called contract with America. My only contract with America is the United States Constitution.
I think that Newt Gingrich is writing his name onto the pages of the history of this country, and I think he's going to go down as one of the great speakers in the history of America.
I think he's doing a terrible job for the country and for this institution. I think he's off on the wrong track and where he wants to take the country. I'm not sure the country wants to move in this direction.
The next 2 hours, we're going inside the Republican Revolution. By their declaration, the most historic Congress in 40 years. They want to redefine American government and This revolution began with a shout heard round the world.
Let me tell you what's happening. We're winning, we're winning, we're winning.
That didn't even come close to telling the story. Republicans were making history, clearing majorities in both the House and Senate. When the sun came up, a Republican Senate Majority Leader was making the phone call. Republicans put their campaign promises in writing, pledging a House vote on each of the contract items in the first 100 days. There were hundreds of bills within these 10 planks of the contract. A rollback of many federal regulations, legal reforms in tort and product liability law, and term limits for members of Congress.
If there's any doubt about the fact that the election results in 1994 were, in the context of America, revolutionary.
But Democratic Senator Christopher Dodd saw it as a marketing triumph.
It has wonderful titles to it. Restoration of American Dream Act. Hell, I'll take 10 of those. I don't know what it is. It sounds pretty good to me.
And given a longer look, Congresswoman Pat Schroeder of Colorado found the contract seductive.
And I kind of find that with each item in the contract, that the initial reaction normally is yes. And then, you say, now, come on. It's like if I said to you, do you want a hot fudge sundae diet? You'd say, yes. And then we'd say, well, shouldn't you have a little nutrition? And, you start to say, yeah.
This is truly...
25 years later, this former history professor would take up the task of repealing the reforms of the 60s and reshaping a more conservative America. He assembled an experienced team. Among the leaders, Dick Armey, Majority Leader. He'd crack the whip on the floor. John Kasich, Chairman of the House Budget Committee. He'd make the tough spending cuts. And Henry Hyde, new Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. The committee chairmen were Gingrich's generals, and 73 Republican freshmen were his foot soldiers. For the first time in 40 years, they entered the House as the majority. They had campaigned on scaling back government, but would they be able to hold their ranks in the test of battle against veteran Democrats who stood ready to defend programs developed over 6 decades? There are
Mr. Doorkeeper,
Mr. Clerk, the Speaker-elect, Newt Gingrich, representative from Georgia, and the Escort Committee.
The 100 years since a Republican addressed the House as Speaker, and everyone seemed to sense the significance.
The question is on passage of the joint resolution. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no.
The Republicans had laid it all on the line with bold promises. They knew the whole world was watching. Could they measure up?
The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to accordingly. The House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. today.
Finally, at 2 a.m., the gavel comes down on the longest and most productive day one in congressional history. The Republicans of performance.
It is a pretty overwhelming challenge to say we're going to get all this out of committee in the next 60 days or so. But let me tell you, we're going to get all this out of committee in the next 60 days or so. Let me make it very clear. A lot of people said to us, you can't really pass 9 reforms on the opening day. We did.
The echo of the
of Newt and Bill sitting at the table in the cabinet room at the White House where they're smiling and laughing. It is the biggest lie that anybody in America has seen in political life in many years. There is no good fellowship. There is daggers drawn enmity. Politics at the national level is a blood sport, and both of them are players. Newt's just better than Bill.
After a catfight, the opening days of the 104th seemed to be on cruise control, and Republicans were behind the wheel. With initial reforms underway, a freight train of legislation was primed to follow. It was obvious this was no accident. It had
Gingrich, the new speaker, is making history on Capitol Hill. His mother revealed his secret thoughts to CBS's Connie Chung. In a taped interview, Kathleen Gingrich told Chung what her son thought of Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Week of the 104th, the House Republican majority was working harder and faster than anyone could remember.
Mr. Speaker, our contract with America states, on the first 100 days of a Republican Congress, our House will force Congress to live under the same laws as everyone else, cut 1/3 of committee staff, cut the congressional budget, and ladies and gentlemen, we've done that.
On January 17th,
we'll sit here, we will be very vigorous, we will try to find out what is going on, and we will constantly ask why this has to be done and why this has to be done so rapidly and why the American people can't know the details.
This was trench warfare, tough, head-to-head. The Republican committee chairmen were making the process move.
We have been assigned a deadline by our leadership of getting this to the floor for a vote. And we're not going to be slowed down. We're bending over backwards to be fair. We moved along, I will grant you, precipitously, but we're confronted with a precipitous calendar.
Republican Henry Hyde of Illinois had toiled in Congress 20 years, never littered with the raw stuff of legislation.
American Dream Restoration Act, family tax credit, $500 per child credit for families with annual incomes up to $200,000. That's too high. That'll come down.
So we're going to try to be more
In past sessions, some committees would become the burial ground for many bills. Republicans promised to change that and break the gridlock. But one of the ways they did it was to shorten the debate.
But I can't believe that Rule 11 is going to be given this kind of short shrift on a constitutional question.
Mr. Chairman from Wisconsin.
Which one did you cut off debate and get it?
That was the balanced budget amendment. That was the first. That was the first one we did, and they went ballistic. I can assure you. And I don't blame them, but I had just had to live up to the timetable.
This was